Hello, and welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I am Dan McCaleb, Executive Editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for the Center Square, Casey Harper. Casey, since President Joe Biden has been in office, he's certainly taken the federal government to the left with progressive policies, particularly with Republicans calling him and those policies woke. You uncovered some evidence this week about how the Department of Justice has been going that way too with its policies, distributing a $150,000 grant to amplify the voices of transgender people in New Orleans who are accusing police officers there of discrimination. Is that within parameters of the Department of Justice? Republicans are being critical of this kind of spending of taxpayer dollars. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so this is, on first blush, you might say, okay, $150,000, federal government spending trillions a year, or why does this really matter? But first report about it that I saw at thecentersquare.com, where you find all the best reporting, Dan, at thecentersquare.com. It's a really interesting story. As you said, it's $150,000, quote, amplify the voices. That's the direct quote of transgender people in New Orleans who are basically, the researchers came in from Rutgers University, came in and said, we know that there's racism in the New Orleans Police Department. So we're going to go, instead of collecting data to verify that transgender people are actually being targeted at a different rate or something, we're just going to assume they are, and then interview them and conduct narrative interviews, and then combine those interviews and use it to just kind of put a face and a story to what we know is already happening. And the study was titled Intersexual Subjection in Law Enforcement, Examining Perceptions Held by LGBTQ People of Color in New Orleans, Louisiana. Perceptions and data are different things, Dan. I think that's the first criticism that came to light when I started talking to researchers about this. You know, collecting anecdotal evidence from people who have a certain specific political view that you handpick is anything but real data or real research. So that's the first question, is what is the quality of research being conducted at federal agencies in recent years? And I've written several stories about this across different agencies, a National Institute of Health I've written about, now, of course, the Department of Justice, but it's not exclusive to them. And I found that there is this trend, I'd say, in about the last 10 years, really since about 2015. Some are earlier than that, but that seems where it's really increasing. And the trend is that more and more of federal research money is being kind of diverted away, maybe siphoned away from the intended purposes, going to increasingly political, or what critics would call, people like Ron DeSantis would call woke spending. And so I just keep going through these databases, calling through what this research grant money is going to. And I'm finding again and again money that in this case was supposed to go towards finding data for race and policing, going to transgender narratives, right? Or money I found looking at research grants in the National Institute of Health, which is supposed to be finding medical cures. And they're researching gay dating apps and how men are impacted by gay dating apps. And there's just so many examples I could go through. In this case, it's the DOJ, but I don't know. It's interesting. On one level, of course, universities are going to show some interest in some of these topics. We know that universities are pretty progressive and liberal, but the question is, does the average American taxpayer really want to be paying for this kind of thing? And even beyond that, how much are these hyper liberal, progressive, woke factions within universities being subsidized and kept running by American taxpayers?
I agree with you that, this was a $150,000 grant. That's a drop in the bucket when you look at the overall federal budget. But this is one grant of, you've uncovered dozens already, but there's probably hundreds, even thousands of the similar types of these grants that are out there. We just went through the debt ceiling battle. We have massive budget deficits. I think it's wise to question this kind of spending. It seems to be under the Biden administration so widespread. Yeah, you can nickel and dime it or whatever, but those nickels and those dimes add up when you're talking about hundreds, even possibly thousands of similar type grants.
Why I'm trying to report about it now and early is because we are seeing an increasing trajectory, right? So a few years ago, it was just, 10 years ago, it was just a one-off thing. But, in 2012, it was occasional. But now in 2023, I'd say it's becoming common. So the question is, 2033, is it going to be some bill that says 10% of all research funding must go to these causes? I mean, we're seeing an upward trajectory. So if we keep on this trend, this is going to be a major line item of spending for the federal government. And so I think we're just so early reporting on it that maybe it seems like this isn't as big a problem. But I think that's because we're catching catching something early.
Well, it was good reporting, Casey, and I know you're going to continue digging into federal government spending, how the federal government uses our listeners' tax dollars, but that is all the time we have this week. Listeners can keep up with all of Casey's great reporting at thecentersquare.com. For Casey Harper, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.